Hi there, it's Llarold. Patch 10.0.7 has been out for a couple of days now, and it's great. I'm going to talk about the new zone, the Forbidden Reach, and more specifically the Onyx Annulet, a mythic raid level ring that you can unlock and power up for very little effort. I'm going to give the big shortcut on how to farm vault keys really quickly and show how, with just a couple of hours and maybe 3,000 gold, you can have a ring that's stronger than any other ring in the game. Let's start with the Forbidden Reach. The Forbidden Reach opens up with a campaign, and it's all pretty normal stuff for World of Warcraft. There are quests, you do the quests, you get reputation and rewards, blah blah blah. There are new world quests, new dragon riding races, new rare mobs, and 385 bind on account gear tokens that you can mail to your alts to help catch up their gear very quickly. After you finish the opening campaign quests for the Forbidden Reach, there's a short quest line with two lost explorers, Zeb and Tasha. After you rescue them from a shipwreck, you help them discover the Zskera Vaults, a new exploration minigame. If you're on an alt, you can skip all of the campaign quests and jump right ahead to this part, which is very nice. The Zskera Vaults are not something that's account-wide in a way that seemed kind of bad when I was first hearing about it, but once I got into it and understood the whole system a bit more, it makes perfect sense. It really isn't something that could be account-wide. And there is a bit of stuff that you can do on your main character to speed things up for your alts. The initial startup to it is only about 10 minutes of work that you have to redo, so it's definitely not an issue at all for me, and I'm usually very sensitive to that kind of thing. On your first trip into the Zskera Vaults on each character, you'll find a ring on the ground and you'll get a quest to take it back to town to unlock the Onyx Annulet. This is a ring with 3 sockets. They're not normal gem sockets though, and it doesn't have any secondary stats. Instead, the primordial stones that you put into it all have procs. Damage procs, healing procs, shielding procs, stat procs, whatever. And these procs are more than strong enough to compensate for the loss of stats. The ring starts at 411 item level, and depending on the level of the gems or the stones that you're putting into it, you can scale all the way up to 424 item level. This doesn't really do anything other than increase the amount of stamina that it gives, which is great, but mostly it's about max item level padding on your armory page, which is very important. So now let's talk about how you get the stones. There are 24 different stones and 3 main ways to get them. First off, you can loot them from chests in the Zskera Vaults. 2, you can loot tokens from events around the Forbidden Reach, and 3, you can buy tokens from a vendor in town. Buying the tokens is the most deterministic way to get the stones you want, and Wowhead has compiled a very helpful list of which tokens correspond to which stones, so it's pretty easy to get the ones you want. Now just to jump ahead a bit, one of the first quests you get in the Zskera Vault will be to retrieve a jeweler's kit and an anvil from the vault, and you use those to safely remove stones from your ring, or destroy unwanted stones for fragments. Stones are not unique. You can get 2, 3, 50 of the same stone, and that's totally fine. That's intended in the system. That's actually a good thing, because it means you can break down, the 49 of that stone that you have no use for. The currency that you use to buy the tokens is the same currency that you use to upgrade the stones, dormant primordial fragments. I had to write this down, I could not remember it. You get a lot of this currency from the Zskera Vaults, and you get 6 fragments each time you destroy a gem, so you're encouraged to destroy any gems you don't plan on using, and if you're trying to get a certain gem from the vendor, it doesn't hurt so bad if you keep getting the wrong one from a token. You're essentially only losing 4 fragments rather than the full 10 it costs to buy a token, because you get the wrong one, you trash it, and you get 6 back. Not so bad. You can also buy extra rings from the vendor. So let's say you want to set up a Mythic Plus ring and a Raid ring, or you play Shadow and Discipline and you want to have different rings for each of those 2 specs, you can just set those rings up separately and not have to go back out to the island to swap out your gems every time. To get upgrade tokens, you'll need to submit work orders to a jewel crafter for unstable elementium. You need 2 upgrade tokens per gem, and unstable elementium costs 10 dormant primordial fragments and 25 silken gem dust. Silken gem dust is a pretty cheap trade good, and the quality doesn't matter, so you can use the cheaper rank 2 silken gem dust, and that's totally fine. That reagent is only about 7 gold a piece in North America right now, but even at twice that price, it's still very cheap. In order to upgrade 3 gems 2 times each so that your whole ring setup is maxed out, you need 150 silken gem dust. So we're talking less than 2,000 gold at the absolute maximum on mats, but probably more like 1,000 gold. That's crazy cheap. You know, if you know a jewel crafter who has the pattern, that'll make things easier for you. But if not, I'm seeing work orders on Illidan for a few hundred gold for these unstable Elementium. Multiply that by 6, and you're talking maybe 3,000 to 5,000 gold total for a mythic raid level ring. I think that's a pretty good deal. A mythic raid BOE ring, by comparison, is 3 million gold right now in the auction house. Not a good deal. Now let's talk about how you get the ring and the stones and the fragments, and really talk about the Zskera Vaults. The Zskera Vaults are a puzzle activity. There are 29 locked doors in the vaults. You use vault keys to unlock doors, 1 key per door, 1 key per use. The keys are bind on account, so you can farm them up on one character and mail them to another. The vault resets every week. You do not have to unlock every door and do every activity on week 1 or any specific week to fully max out your stones. I think my warrior got all 3 of his stones up to 424 in only about 20 to 25 doors. So there's definitely a good bit of extra wiggle room. There is an achievement for opening all 29 doors in a single week, and there are pets and toys and recipes, so there's an incentive for opening all the doors and seeing what's in there. But if you don't care and you just want player power, you're not interested in the fluff, you can do it the one time, max out your stones, and never come back. There's not a ton of combat in the vault. There are a handful of mobs that have like 600 or 700,000 health, but for the most part, it's little mobs here and there that have like 150,000 health. And then other than that, mostly just puzzle solving. Here are a couple of examples. You walk into a room that has frost all on the ground. There are 2 chests there, but they're frozen shut. In another room, there's a cauldron filled with fire. You can't just scoop it out, you'd burn your hands, so you have to find an empty vial in yet another room. You grab the vial, you scoop the fire, and then you throw it into the frozen room to thaw out the chests and grab the loot. Kind of reminds me a bit of a Zelda game. Another example, you might find a chest guarded by an arcane beacon. When you click the chest, the beacon blasts you with arcane damage and interrupts you. In a different room, you can find an arcane reflecting stone. When you click the stone, it makes you immune to arcane damage for 10 minutes. You get that buff, go back and click the chest, you can't get blasted, now you have some loot. Every vault is different, and getting to the 3rd or 4th floor is going to be different on every single character. On my monk and paladin, I had a pile of random teleport scrolls that I could use to teleport myself up to the top floor and then sort of jump down to other floors from there. On my warrior, I was able to activate a bubble beam that made me float up to the ceiling Willy Wonka style. I got jetpacks on a couple of characters as well, and I've heard that some people have little dragons in their vaults who will carry them around. You will always have spider webs that you can use to take yourself up to the 2nd floor at least, but after that it's pretty much RNG, but there's always some way to get up to the upper floors. There's also some incredibly cute stuff in the vault. I found a recipe rat in one of the rooms, literally a rat wearing a chef's hat. I picked him up and put him in my bag, and every 5 minutes I can negotiate with him to get scraps of his recipe for deviled eggs. As long as I keep cheese in my bag for him to nibble on every few minutes, he will stick around. I bought 50 wheels of aged cheddar cheese, and he is literally currently eating my cheese out of my bags while I'm recording this video. Fantastic. So now for the most important bit here. How do you get the keys? Any enemy in the Forbidden Reach can drop a key. You get a handful of keys, 6 or 7, from one of the quests that you first get when you enter the Zskera Vault for the first time. Rare mobs have a higher chance than normal NPCs, but they're rare, and flying around farming them can get a little tiring while you're waiting for them to spawn, because, you know, they're not up all the time, and then sometimes there'll be 5 or 6 of them all up at once. You get to one and kill it, you go to another one, it dies as you get there, you open your map, they're all dead already. There's got to be a better way. There is. There are 4 reputation NPCs in town, 1 for each of the 4 major factions on the Dragon Isles, and they all sell items for elemental overflow. All NPCs on the Forbidden Reach drop Elemental Overflow. Rares drop about 1,000 or so each, 1,000 to 1,200. Normal mobs drop a handful, we're talking 6 to 10, and elites drop quite a bit more, 25 or so. The Dragonscale Expedition NPC cataloger Dela is a little dark iron dwarf lady wearing glasses. She's sort of on the left side of these 4 NPCs. She sells sacks of oddities for 2,000 elemental overflow each. These bags appear to contain one of 5 things. They can have a pet, which is rare, vendor trash, which is also surprisingly rare, 385 item level, bind on account gear tokens, which are also, again, pretty rare, and pretty helpful for gearing up your alts, more elemental overflow, or Zskera Vault keys. On average, the elemental overflow that I got from the bags is somewhere in the range of 1,500 to 3,000. It usually covers its own cost. I've literally gotten 1 overflow from a bag before. That was kind of annoying, but I've also gotten 4,450 from a bag. So in general, getting overflow is just a free extra bag on average. I would say I get 1 key about every 3 to 4 bags. On 2 characters where I had farmed about 20 keys naturally and 20,000 overflow, I was able to just buy bags for the rest of the keys that I needed to finish the vault, and I even had some leftover keys to send over to another character and really make that process quite a bit faster on my next character. So what is the best way to farm overflow? I prefer AoE farming elites down inside the War Creche. Creche? I don't know how to pronounce that word. I even looked it up and I can't remember. It's the main dungeony area in the middle of the Reach. You can also just hunt rares. I mean, you do get about 1,000 to 1,200 overflow per rare, which is pretty good, but they're not always up all the time. If you're able to just farm the packs of elites down in the War Creche, you can consistently farm up a lot of overflow pretty quickly. I would estimate from a few brief AoE farming sessions down there that you can pull about 500 overflow per minute pretty easily. I was getting about twice that much solo, but I am a well-geared tank, so my thumb's a bit on the scale there. That's about 30,000 overflow per hour. You probably could do, in a group, maybe like 1 hour of farming down there and be done with the grind. Also, the mobs down in that place with the name have a pretty decent drop rate on keys, so that kind of helps speed the whole process up as well. Even if you're not up for farming those elites and you don't want to hunt rares, you could also just farm normal mobs pretty much anywhere that they're tightly gathered up around the Reach. So some of the central areas, like the area right outside of the Creche, or on some of the beaches. It won't be as efficient, but it will be easier, and you can still farm up enough overflow just by doing that and all the daily activities around the zone to buy quite a few bags and get a lot of easy keys for unlocking your vault. Alright, last section. Which gem should you use? I was going to be able to answer this question definitively yesterday when I started working on this, but then Blizzard buffed the gems 4 times today. Not 4 buffs, 4 different rounds of hotfix changes throughout the course of the day. They're on a wild one over at Blizzard HQ. So this may change. Stuff is definitely changing. But here's what we know for now. The Desirous Bloodstone, which you can get from a condensed necromantic magic token, deals damage and heals you. For some reason, it counts as a healing stone. The Prophetic Twilight Stone, which you can get from a condensed shadow magic token, triggers your damage stone whenever your healing stone procs, and your healing stone whenever your damage stone procs. Using these 2 stones together effectively gives you double the value of the Bloodstone and any other damage stone that you use. These 2 gems work as a pair, and without one, I wouldn't bother using either. Fortunately, both of them are really easy to get. Both of the tokens that they're on only have 2 options, so it's about a 50-50 shot of getting the one that you want, which is pretty cheap for target farming compared to everything else. If the proc interaction where Desirous Bloodstone counts as a healing stone for the purposes of proccing the Twilight Stone, if that were to be nerfed, then I wouldn't use either. There are plenty of other good direct damage stones though, and they're all pretty decent, but 2 main options rise to the top. One for single target and one for AoE. The first is the Freezing Ice Stone, which is obviously from the Frost Magic token. It's the best option for single target damage right now. The Humming Arcane Stone from the Arcane Magic token was the best option prior to today. It does seem to have dropped off now, though, due to being given a 20 or 25 second internal cooldown. I think that pretty much killed it. For AoE, the Storm Infused Stone from the Nature Magic token is the best option. It hits 3 targets when it procs. It's great for AoE, but it has a downside that may get fixed by the time I put this out, who knows. It can pull enemies that are not in combat with you. It has a 100-yard range, so if you're in Mythic Plus and you have 2 mobs or 1 mob left and you're within 100 yards of another pack, and that thing procs, it's gonna pull that pack. If you're worried about that, which seems reasonable to me, you can stick with the Freezing Ice Stone all the time. I've also heard that the healing gems are pretty good if you care about your HPS. But I don't, so that's the end of this section. This is a surprisingly large amount of content for a mid-level patch, and it's really rewarding even for high-level players. That's great. I'm really impressed by how much content Blizzard has been putting into WoW with this expansion. It's exactly what the game has needed for years, and you'll love to see it. Alright, that's it. Thanks for watching. Bye.